Hey everyone, this is Christopher Reburn, and thank you for joining me on Conversations with Christopher, the official reboot. You know, 6 years ago, when I did my very last podcast episode of Conversations, I really felt that I had said everything, I had talked about everything. I really did. I really felt that it was a good way to bow out. The show was one of the greatest shows in the world and one of the highest rated on the platform at the time. And we broke so many records with that show. It was groundbreaking. It was just such a wonderful show. But after 15 years, almost 16 years, I did believe I talked about everything that I possibly could, and many times, often saturating some of the same topics over and over again. So I thought, well, before I sound like a broken record, let's wrap this up. And when I did the farewell shows, I really meant it. But here we are again, mainly because of you. There is not a week that goes by between my telephone readings and email readings where people do not mention the podcast. And lately, over the last couple of years, I've definitely been feeling very, um, I'm listening to people and what they want. And it seems to me that many of you wanted me to continue the show. So here we are again doing a reboot. I'm very proud of the show. I'm very proud to do this and to give these episodes to you all. When I broke the news on social media that I would be rebooting Conversations with Christopher, the response that I received was nothing short of miraculous. I was stunned and very emotional to hear from so many of you who left comments and sent me personal messages saying, "Oh my God, Christopher, this is what we need right now. We need your show back." So I'm very, very honored that after all these years away from that podcast, so many of you have literally come out of the woodwork to embrace this reboot, this relaunch. So I'm very grateful, very, very grateful to all of you who have been with me all this time, plus some, and to all of my newbies who have just recently found out about me. I'm very, very grateful for all of you for listening to this, and I do encourage you to keep listening and share this show with your friends and anybody else that you think could be interested in all things spirituality, psychic, paranormal, metaphysical, new age, the whole kit and caboodle. And for our very first show back, I really wanted to do kind of like a recollection. It's 30 years now. Somebody reminded me I could kill them for it. 30 years. Um, 30 years of professional psychic reading, spiritual counseling, healing, light working. 30 years. That's a long time. And I guess that was another reason why I wanted to reboot the conversations, was because um, it's just time. Some things in the past really brought us a lot of pleasure, and I know for many of you, this show was one of those things. And knowing, like I said, all the response has been so unbelievable, and so many of you are so kind and generous with your excitement for this reboot, which was another reason why it made me excited to want to do it. So I wanted our first episode back. We're calling it 30 Years, Thousands of Souls. And this podcast today, this episode, this segment, is going to talk about things that I've learned in these past 30 years of talking to clients and doing readings and really finding out who I really am along the way through the life experiences that I've had and the life experiences of others. I've never done anything like this before. I've never done a show or a segment that really digs perhaps this deep into me. I'd rather talk about angels and spirit guides until the cows come home. So this is a bit of a switch. So I really wanted to open with this segment for our very first reboot episode of this podcast. So I think because it's 30 years now, I'm finally stepping out from behind the reading table to share some what I think is an incredible story of life, of love, of loss, of gain, of finding appreciation of people, appreciation of souls, appreciation of small things, of little blessings that are significant blessings to those who have none. So I really, really wanted to talk about some of those things today. I want to warn you also. This is an official disclaimer. I am not a professional. So as you have observed with the opening of this podcast, there was no special opening. There was no elaborate introduction. No annoying music for 2 minutes that you have to suffer through. No, I came right on immediately and we got getting right down to business. That's how we roll here on Conversations with Christopher. I'd like to share how my understanding of the other side has matured from the first year of doing readings to over 30 years of doing readings. My understanding of the other side has strengthened in time. And of course, many times we refer to it as heaven. Spiritual, religious people call it heaven. Spiritual people, metaphysical, new age may call it the other side. It is the same place. And my appreciation for loved ones on the other side has intensified as I've gotten older, as I've lost people, personal people, animals, things that have meant everything to me. It was always so natural for me to help other people who've lost loved ones and still am helping people every day. But it became a whole new experience when as I've matured, began to experience loss. And then I got to experience some of those same emotions that other people had told me that they were experiencing. So my appreciation, my vision of the other side has only intensified with life, with loss, with experiences and experience. When I look back on the last 30 years and as I celebrate the next 30 years, I think if I were to share the single biggest way a lifetime of psychic readings and spiritual sessions has fundamentally changed me, as it has grounded me. It has allowed me to exude more greatness, to become a better person as I have adapted to so many changes in society and so many world changes, um, people changes. Being able to learn from other people's experiences, I don't think there is a better way. I don't think there is a more definitive, successful learning method, is learning, unfortunately, sometimes at the expense of others. In doing readings for over 30 years now, really since I was about 7 or 8, if we were to get right down to the fine tune of it, at the school bus stops, which was always so exciting for a while because I'd have parents of students. We remember back in the day when we would all run to the bus stop to wait for the bus to go to school, and I would have parents of some of the other students that would be there asking me questions, and I'd give them the answers. And they would do it and kept doing it. I thought, God, I must be special. I must be so important. I must be way too cute. All these adults are talking to me, but none of the other kids. I didn't recognize what was happening. I just was having very natural conversations with adults. Something that's more challenging in these days and times, I'll tell you. So I think learning has been the biggest thing. Learning to be more patient, learning to accept myself when I hear all these stories of other people and how it's taken them so long to be able to accept themselves. I've learned the greatest lessons I've learned have been through clients, through people that I've helped, through people that have shared their stories of loss and love and life with me. And I still am very protective over my spirit, very protective over my time, and I still meditate every day. And I encourage you all to meditate. You can protect your own spirit and your own energy just by meditating every day. And it doesn't have to be for lengthy periods of time either. I'd like to talk briefly about the most common misconception people have about my daily life as a global psychic traveler. Some people believe that everything comes to me very easy, that I am able to tune into everyone all the time, 100%, everything like that. And the energy is different by the day. Today might be a great day, tomorrow might be a good day, but not as great as today was. I am very susceptible to the universal energy, as we all are, as all light workers are. And I think the biggest misconception people think about me is that there's something unique about me, something special about me. There is not. Everybody is born intuitive. Whether that matures with age, that's to that individual person. But I think that people set some unfortunate, they have misconception, oh, he's going to be right all the time, or oh, this isn't right. I've had so many people tell me, oh, you're wrong about this, and then they'd give them time to think about it or give it time for life to happen, and they'll call back and say, well, I should have listened to you the first time because everything that you said was exactly how it's come out to be. I think if we were all to talk about identifying the one universal language that I've found that every soul speaks, regardless of their culture, that would be love. I think everybody has the ability to love. Unfortunately, we live in a day and age now where we're killing our brothers and sisters because they're a little bit different, because they live their lives a way that you may not understand. The judgment, the hate that exists in our world today is heartbreaking for me because I love everybody. I don't care who you sleep with. I don't care. I don't care about anything downstairs, what you're doing to your body, as long as you're treating your body well. I love everybody, everybody, no matter color, no matter gender, no matter sexual orientation. I love everyone. And that has always been a part of my message, all of my live events and the other podcasts that I used to do, Conversations with Christopher Part 1. That was the biggest message I tried to send, and now I send that message again, asking it to be renewed for all people listening to this podcast. If I were to compare how grief is expressed, let's say if we were talking about busy international metropolises versus the intimacy of private sessions. I do live events when when I go on tours and stuff in different cities and venues. And to me, the energy is just as connected as if I were in a crowd of people on the street or in a small theater or venue with a private audience. Grief is grief, and I feel that strongly from people. Grief is when someone is grieving the loss of a loved one or a pet or even a relationship. That grief fills up all of their energy fields. It's not hard to immediately connect to that energy, whether it's in a crowded room or if it's in a small little group get together. Sometimes I want to reflect right now on what the world's most all the different readings I've done, what they've taught me about the human experiences of and why we're not alone. Because I do believe in angels. I've done hundreds of other episodes on the first podcast about angels, and that we're never alone. Whether sometimes you could be on a crowded street corner with a lot of people and still be alone, feel alone. You could be with your family at a family get together and still feel alone. But those angels, those spirit guides, those loved ones in heaven are there every second. Sometimes our grief, sometimes our stress overcomes us to a level that we can't feel any of the blessings around us. We can't feel anything that that we need to make us appreciate what we have. I heard from someone the other day that said they were having a really bad day because they were late for work, and they just feel like a failure in life, and woe is them. I mean, there was definitely some victim mentality going on. I had to remind them that we don't have missiles flying over our heads here. They do in some foreign territories. We don't have those missiles yet. Give it time, and I'm sure that may change. But there are so many things to be thankful for that we forget when we get sad, when we have grief, when we get angry, when we disappointed. The most important message for me to lay to you, anyone listening at this time, is to give up yourself to grieve if you're going loss and loss of one, loss of friend, everything. Is give yourself time to grieve. Give yourself the time that you really need so that you can grieve, so that you can start to let some sunshine in your sky again, so that you can start to appreciate your life and all the blessings that you do have. People, it's so easy for us all to forget that when we're going through difficult times. Through the many years that I have been a spiritual and psychic and paranormal advocate, I have encountered skeptics across different continents, and they all tend to share the same doubts and questions. So most skeptics just cannot imagine that someone has the ability to do the things that we do. And I say we because there's so many of you listening that have light working gifts and abilities for psychic ability, mediumship, healing, animal communication, remote viewing, all sorts of light working. So there's always going to be people that doubt. Of course, years ago when I was younger and felt like I had something to prove, I would take every single skeptic on. I would feel it my personal responsibility to guide them and teach them to where they could get to a level where they could let that wall down and start believing in how real these things are. That used to be me. Nowadays, if someone says, "Oh, I'm a skeptic," well, that's too bad for you, but it's not my job to prove you wrong, or right for that matter. So those of you that have abilities, spiritual abilities and gifts that want to branch out and start doing readings and start doing some of the work that many of us do, you will always run into people who doubt you. But don't we anyway in everyday life, even without the abilities that we have? It seems like there's always people that doubt us, whether we're psychics or mediums or readers or healers or just normal, regular people. Family members love to doubt us, don't they? Friends who are supposed to love us and protect us love to doubt us. It's a sad thing. I appreciate you listening today. Whether you're listening, whatever country you're from, wherever you're from, I'm so grateful that you're giving me some of your attention and time today. I have spoken to people on every continent, and one of the things that people ask me a lot is how do you deal with language barriers and when you do readings in different countries or locations. I've never had one instance where I couldn't understand a person, even if they spoke in a language I didn't know. I could always read their energy. I could always know what they were trying to say, even if I couldn't understand the language that they were speaking. Love language. When you feel, when someone is respecting you, when someone is talking to you, you feel that. You'll connect to that. And I've never required the use of a translator when I'm doing readings, any kind of readings. I've never required a translator. Of course, now watch everybody from every country in the world come out and, want to talk to me, which is a great blessing in itself. But of course, now now someone's probably going to prove me wrong. I'm going to get somebody from wherever, and I'm going to need a translator for the first time. I shouldn't have said that, but anyway, I want to also talk about some of the most emotionally shattering readings where even the other side couldn't provide easy peace. And there have been many of them through my work with missing persons cases, through doing readings with people who've lost loved ones, particularly children, lost a child. I don't think there's anything harder in life than to deal with something like that when a parent goes through dealing with the loss of a loved one. Just it's just so unfair. It's cruel that any parent has to bury a child or children, and it's, I suppose, just as cruel for a child to have to bury their parent. But isn't that life? Unfortunately, isn't that just the way it goes? I have dealt with so many parents grieving. Some people call me the day. I've had people call me the very day someone passes away. Um, and it's unbelievably hard. Of course, no more harder for them, but the emotional aspect as a reader that I feel when dealing with somebody who's heavily emotional, that's absolutely in such a lost state of grief, um, it's very, very challenging. And as I've gotten older and have learned to appreciate my emotions, and of course everyone says, "Oh, don't get emotional during a reading because that's unprofessional." I have never said I was a professional. And there have been readings where I've had to take a minute to compose myself because the grief, the energy that you're feeling so raw from another loving human being is so great, um, that you can't help yourself. There was a missing persons case that I worked on a number of years ago where a little 4-year-old girl went missing, and the mother called me, and I was working with the detective, and the little girl had been raped, murdered, and then dumped in a body of water. And about a month after I spoke with her, they found they found her. And and I remember her calling me back, and she's like, "Well, thank you. We found her. I just wanted to let you know." And she said, "I thought you would be happy." Huh. Happy. No, I couldn't say that I was happy. But it was like, she was providing validation, but in the words that she used, I don't think she meant them, because I think she was in such grief. um but people act differently when they're in grief, and I've never, of course it's a bit more elaborate than that, but I'm not going to get more deeper into it right now, because this beautiful woman is still a part of my beautiful circle, and I have no doubt that she will be listening to this, so I'm not going to say much more than that. But the emotional aspect of those readings are hard, and as I've gotten older, you would think as you get older you get more used to it. No, not me. Maybe you, maybe other people. But for me, it's always hard. It's always difficult, and it's almost always sad. If I were to discuss, let's say, the deep frustration when the unseen is loud, but the living are too blocked by ego or pain to hear. That happens frequently. That happens very, very frequently. It's very frustrating when you deliver messages to people and they just can't let themselves believe it. They can't let themselves accept it, which is part of grief, which is one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of connecting with somebody who's just lost someone in the last day or two or week or month. Most of the times, and this is hard too, I suggest waiting a few months if you need to have a session like that. Um, I don't like to do it right away. I like to give the spirit a few months to get, you know, back in heaven, obviously get comfortable, have time to catch up with loved ones before I connect with them. And when you're connecting to a spirit in heaven and channeling them, you are essentially bringing a part of their energy down here. Why on earth would I want to do that after they have just transitioned, but bring them back here real quick just to satisfy someone? I don't. I just don't like it, and I won't do it. I will be happy to offer them spiritual counseling in the meanwhile, but as far as making that connection, trying to bridge the gap between here and there, no, it's not going to be that day. It'll be a few months later. And if it's meant to be, it will be. There's a lot of different types of unfinished business that relatives in heaven forget to do here, including making amends. Sometimes people have plans to make amends, but then they get sick and they die, or they're unable to communicate, and that's unfinished business that they take with them to heaven, to the other side. And that's hard, because as their soul, as they're, going through their life review, trying to understand about their soul, trying to understand certain things that they did when they were on the earth plane, those are things they have to deal with, that they have unfinished business. That's why loved ones love to come through in our dreams, because coming through in our dreams is a very genuine spiritual experience that happened the night. Let's say you wake up with a dream that you had of a loved one tomorrow morning. That's because you astral projected to be with them last night. Tonight. Sorry, I think I just butchered that. So let's say this morning you woke up and you had a lovely dream about a loved one in heaven. That was because last night in your sleep, your spirit left the body, which it does frequently, and went to the other side and had a reunion with a loved one. That's what that is. Almost every time we have a dream of a loved one in heaven, it's so real because we were there. Our spirit was there. We remember it. Our guides and angels are very helpful to make sure that we remember everything that we need to. Some things truly still keep me up at night. Different secrets I've had to carry, the heavy cost of being that bridge, and hearing people miss their loved ones so much, even sharing secrets, even sharing different things that they did to try to win somebody's approval. But ultimately, that person died and they weren't able to accomplish that. I think the thousands of souls that I've met on this journey, particularly in these last 30 years of professional readings, I think everybody has a signature energy that's exclusive to them. For example, someone I met recently, I'd met at a live event about 10 years ago, and she came up to me and gave me a hug, and I remembered her immediately. I didn't remember her when I seen her, but when we had that embrace, I remembered her. And that's why energy is everything, and everything is energy. And that's what's so magical about it. When people have asked me a lot, how do I balance living a physical life while constantly bridging the gap to the next world? I actually live quite an ordinary life. When I'm not doing readings, I love to play with my dog. I love to spend time with my mom. I love to get on the phone and call people that I haven't spoke to in a long time. I love to travel. I love to do normal things. So I'm actually, if those of you that have met me in person can definitely jump in here, and I am incredibly normal, almost to the point of being colossally boring. My work with the other side has taught me the true nature of time never ends, that time continues, that love continues. All of our grandparents that have passed away, our parents that have passed away, are still continuing that love affair in heaven with each other. So love never dies, time never truly ends. There's many stories from many different sessions in the last 30 years that I've done that still impacts me today. How one of the things that surprises me the most is how mothers and fathers who have had their kids killed, who, their children have been either abducted or raped or killed or worse, and all of those things, how they're able to forgive the person or the people responsible. How 8 years ago when um, how 8 years ago when a mother called me and she said, I have to go to court tomorrow to do a victim statement for the sentencing of my son's killer. Her son was gay, and was killed by a terrible person who was incredibly homophobic. Um, and she said, I need to talk to you. And we talked about a lot of different things that in that moment. And she went in there the next day and with her head held high, and she forgave her son's killer. And I that's a big takeaway for me, the power of forgiveness. I think that's the most definitive thing I've learned in the last 30 years of doing spiritual readings for people, is how miraculous the gift, the art of forgiveness is. Doesn't mean you're forgetting, because you never will, but you can forgive so that you can still be good to yourself and to be others around, to be good to other people around you. People that hold a grudge, people that haven't forgiven someone, it destroys a part of you if you let it. I think everybody should just forgive. And if anybody did something wrong to you or to a loved one, just forgive them. Forgive them for their soul. Forgive them for your soul, and let that go. Doesn't mean you have to forget, but you can forgive. And when someone says, "Oh, I can't forgive somebody," well, when I have seen and when I have personally watched in person mothers and fathers and family members forgiving killers, forgiving rapers, forgiving the most evilest people on the planet for what they've done to bring harm to their family, then you can forgive anybody. If a parent can forgive someone like that for taking away one of their babies, then you can forgive anybody for anything. And that really is probably, without any hesitation, the biggest lesson that I've learned. 30 years of witnessing the end of life has changed the way I start my mornings. I have found in the last 30 years that I'm so much more grateful for being alive when I hear the stories of other people and what they've endured and what they're now living without and who they're living without. I have learned to appreciate every morning that I wake up a little bit more than I used to. One of the things that I wanted to end our podcast with today is I wanted to share a piece of wisdom that I would give my younger self at the start of this 30-year journey. And this is something that you all should ask yourself. So I'm going to ask the same question of you. What is one piece of wisdom you would give your younger self at the start of this journey where you're at right now? What's the one piece of wisdom you would give your younger self now? And I'd love for you to put that in the comment section. The one piece of advice I would give, one piece of wisdom I would give myself, is to not worry so much what everybody thinks. There was a day where I valued everyone's opinions, where if someone didn't understand me or didn't like me, it was personal. And as you grow, as you mature, and it can take decades to really fully mature, but as you get to that level where you're finally comfortable in your own skin, you're proud of who you are, you're proud of your morals, you're proud of your values, you're proud of your strengths just as much as you're proud of your weaknesses, you learn to not care so much what everybody and their mother thinks about you. I would also tell my younger self perhaps not always to be as kind, and perhaps not always to be as generous, because narcissistic people of the world are waiting to take advantage of that. I would tell my younger self to give myself a break and not look for all the answers so quickly, because some of those answers we look for when we're younger don't actually arrive till we're older. This is Christopher Reburn, and I'm so grateful that you've given me some of your time today. I hope our first podcast back, our first segment back, is something that you're proud of as much as I am proud of it. I hope this episode has also given you more of a bird's eye view into my life as a practicing psychic medium, spiritual teacher, healer, light worker, advocate for peace, author. All those titles mean nothing because I prefer just being called a human. I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. And I never said I was. And a strong person doesn't take themselves too serious. Now, I'd love to hear from you. I would love to hear from you and what you think of our first segment back. So be sure to put a comment in the comment box. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram and X, TikTok, all those things. So be sure you're linked up. And thank you to the great people at Spotify and to YouTube for having this podcast on Spotify and YouTube. Please be sure to share this around so that more people can find us and be part of our little community here. Thank you so much for listening. And be sure to check me out on my official website at www.thepsychicspirit.com. If you love this podcast as much as I do, and as much as I hope you will, then please consider supporting me on my Patreon page. And we'll put the link out there for that as well. If you come over to Patreon, which I have currently over, I think, 600 videos on demand that you can gain access to, and also personal question live streams, a monthly class to embrace your spirituality and psychic ability, and so much more, come on over to Patreon and see what we're doing over there, because 4 years ago, I launched a Patreon community, and it has grown so beautifully since then. So thank you to all my Patreon subscribers that are listening to this, and feel free to come on over and take a seat with us around the table, and let's continue to embrace who we are as spiritual beings and light workers. Thank you so much for listening today. Thank you very, very much for being there. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and be sure to come back again real soon for episode 2. Thank you so much, and all my love to you, and may God bless you.